Humanity was not feared when they first entered the galactic stage. They were studied, measured, then quietly dismissed. Among the countless civilizations that spanned the stars, humanity appeared unimpressive. Their technology was efficient but not dominant. Their ships were durable but not intimidating. Their culture emphasized cooperation over conquest, an idea most species had abandoned long ago. Where others expanded through force, humanity asked permission. Where others retaliated, humanity negotiated. And where others ruled through fear, humanity offered help. At first it was confusing. Then it became amusing. They heal enemies, one warlord scoffed during a council broadcast. They rebuild systems that attacked them, another added. They apologize when they're the ones wronged. Laughter followed. It spread quickly, through entertainment channels, military briefings, even academic circles. Humans became case studies in what a species shouldn't be if it hoped to survive among predators. But humanity never responded to the mockery. Not publicly. Instead, they kept working. Human medical fleets traveled into war zones no one else would enter, saving lives regardless of allegiance. Their engineers repaired failing infrastructure across neutral systems. Their diplomats maintained fragile peace agreements others couldn't hold together. They became useful, convenient, safe to ignore, and so the galaxy made a quiet decision about humanity. They were harmless. At the edges of human-controlled space, things looked different. Colonies reported increased incidents. Cargo ships vanished without explanation. Outposts along contested borders were harassed by unidentified fleets. Sometimes survivors returned with stories, fragmented, panicked. They didn't even communicate. They scanned us, then left. They took people. Each time, humanity followed the same protocol. A formal inquiry. A request for dialogue. A call for peaceful resolution. Every single time. Even when evidence pointed toward known aggressors. Even when the pattern became impossible to ignore. Even when entire settlements went silent. They're afraid, some species concluded. They're weak, others agreed. But they misunderstood something critical. Humanity wasn't reacting emotionally. They were observing. Deep beneath Earth's oceans, far below the reach of satellites or curious eyes, massive structures pulsed with controlled energy. Facilities carved into the planet's crust extended for miles, hidden, shielded, forgotten by everyone except those who built them. Elsewhere in the cold silence of asteroid belts, shipyards operated without fanfare. No transmissions, no signatures, just quiet construction. Not fleets for display. Not weapons for intimidation. Something else. Something precise. Humanity was not ignoring the galaxy. They were studying it. Every attack. Every pattern of aggression. Every strategic weakness. Catalogued. Understood. Prepared for. On the Galactic Council, humanity's ambassador remained a symbol of their species. Calm, composed, endlessly patient. Even during heated debates, when accusations were thrown or subtle threats were made, the human never raised their voice. We believe coexistence is still possible, they would say. It became predictable, rehearsed, dismissible, and that predictability made everyone comfortable. Because predictable species were controllable. Then came Urandor. It was a mid-sized human colony located near the outer edge of a resource-rich sector. Nothing strategically critical, nothing heavily defended. Which made it vulnerable. The colony went dark without warning. No distress signal. No evacuation. No data transmission. Just silence. Initial scans revealed something unsettling. The structures were still there. The infrastructure remained intact. But there were no life signs. None. Not a single human remained. It was as if the entire population had simply ceased to exist. The galactic response was minimal. Incidents like this weren't uncommon in unstable regions. Colonies disappeared, species clashed. It was the nature of a chaotic universe. Unfortunate, some said. Expected, others added. A few even speculated quietly that humanity might finally respond with something resembling force. But most didn't care enough to watch, because they already knew how this would go. A formal complaint, a request for investigation, another attempt at diplomacy. That was the human way. Except this time, no message came, no ambassador spoke, no transmission was sent. Human space went still. Not inactive, not panicked, just quiet, unnaturally quiet. Trade routes continued, but without their usual openness. Diplomatic channels remained functional, but no new communications were initiated. It was subtle, easy to overlook. But for those paying close attention, something had changed. Weeks later, long-range sensors detected unusual activity near deep space construction zones previously thought inactive. Energy readings spiked, then vanished. Entire sectors of space began showing irregularities, brief distortions, like reality itself flickering for a fraction of a second. Most systems dismissed it as interference, natural anomalies, sensor errors. But a few analysts, buried deep within intelligence networks, noticed a pattern forming. Something was moving, quietly, deliberately, and it wasn't broadcasting its presence. Back on Earth, in a command chamber hidden miles beneath the surface, a group of human officials stood in silence. No panic, no debate, just a shared understanding. A screen displayed a single word. Urindorth. Below it a list, not of losses, but of confirmations. Data verified. Patterns aligned. Threshold reached. For the first time in generations, there were no discussions of diplomacy. No calls for restraint, because restraint had already been given. For a very long time. A final prompt appeared on the screen. Authorize response. No one hesitated. A single command was issued. Quiet, steady, absolute. Proceed. Far beyond human space, in regions where no one was watching closely enough. Something shifted. Not a fleet. Not a signal. Something deeper. As if the universe itself had acknowledged a decision. And across the stars, though no one could explain why, an unease began to spread. Because without a single word, without a single warning, humanity had just stopped being patient. The destruction of Urindor should have triggered outrage. That was the expectation. Across the galaxy, analysts, diplomats, and war strategists all predicted the same sequence. A formal protest, a request for investigation, perhaps even sanctions if humanity felt unusually bold. But none of that happened. Days passed, then weeks. Humanity remained silent. At first, the galaxy didn't notice. After all, silence from humanity was not unusual. They were known for taking time, for carefully considering responses. But this felt different. There was no preliminary statement. No request for cooperation. No subtle diplomatic outreach behind closed channels. Nothing. It was as if the loss of an entire colony didn't provoke a reaction at all. And that made some species uneasy. Within the dominion of Varesh, however, there was no concern. The Varesh didn't fear silence. They thrived on it. To them, silence meant submission. Their empire had been built on a simple, brutal principle: strike fast, strike hard, and let fear do the rest. Most civilizations, when faced with overwhelming aggression, folded quickly. Humanity had always been different, annoyingly persistent with their negotiations, but ultimately harmless. Predictable. They'll complain eventually, one Varesh commander remarked, reviewing reports from the Urindor operation. They always do. The room responded with low, amused growls. There was no urgency, no preparation for retaliation. Why would there be? They had taken human territory before. Nothing had happened. Back on the Galactic Council, the mood was far less certain. Delegates gathered, murmuring among themselves as the session opened. The usual debates felt distant, overshadowed by a single unspoken question. Where was humanity? Their seats sat empty, not symbolically delayed, not temporarily excused. Empty. That had never happened before. The human representative has not submitted a request for appearance, an automated system announced. A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. Perhaps they are preparing a statement, one delegate offered cautiously. Or calculating a response, another added. A third leaned forward, voice quieter. Or deciding not to respond at all. That suggestion lingered in the air longer than anyone was comfortable with. Because in a galaxy built on reactions, on predictable cycles of action and retaliation, true silence was unnatural. Dangerous. The first sign that something was wrong didn't come from human space. It came from Varesh territory. A remote outpost, heavily fortified, strategically positioned near key resource lanes, suddenly dropped off all monitoring systems. At first, it was assumed to be a communications failure. Routine. Technicians attempted to re-establish contact. No response. They dispatched a patrol fleet. Minutes later, that fleet reported visual confirmation. The outpost was gone. Not damaged. Not destroyed. Gone. Where massive defensive structures once stood, there was only empty space, clean, undisturbed, as if nothing had ever been built there. No debris, the commander demanded. None, came the reply. No radiation signatures, no residual energy, it's just empty. That wasn't possible. Even total annihilation left traces, particles, heat, distortions. This left nothing. Within hours, similar reports began surfacing. A listening station, gone. A patrol squadron, gone. A supply convoy, gone. Each disappearance identical. Instant. Silent. Absolute. The Varesh command structure, once relaxed, shifted rapidly into alert status. Unknown weapons. New enemy faction. Internal sabotage. Theories clashed, but none fit the evidence. Because there was no evidence. Only absence. Then the transmission came. It didn't originate from a known location. It didn't follow standard communication protocols. It simply appeared simultaneously across military channels, civilian networks, and secure government frequencies. Every screen, every system, every device capable of receiving data displayed the same thing. A black background, then a voice. Human, calm, controlled, and completely devoid of emotion. You mistook our patience for weakness. That was all. No identification. No threats. No demands. The message lasted less than 3 seconds. Then it vanished. The effect was immediate. Across the galaxy, conversations stopped mid-sentence. Military commands froze. Entire governments scrambled to analyze what they had just heard. Because for the first time, humanity hadn't asked for peace. They hadn't offered negotiation. They hadn't even acknowledged loss. They had simply stated a fact. Within Varesh space, panic began to spread. Not openly, not yet, but in subtle cracks within their command structure. Fleet captains requested clarification. Outposts demanded reinforcement. Surveillance networks were expanded, scanning desperately for any sign of the threat. They found nothing. No approaching fleets. No detectable weapons. No anomalies large enough to explain the disappearances. Just empty space. Back on Earth, deep within secured command facilities, the atmosphere remained unchanged. Calm, focused, efficient. Screens displayed real-time updates, not of battles but of outcomes. Targets identified. Targets confirmed. Targets removed. No celebrations followed. No triumphant declarations. Because this wasn't seen as victory. It was correction. In the Galactic Council chamber, the empty human seat seemed heavier now. More significant. Because everyone understood something they hadn't before. Humanity hadn't been ignoring the galaxy. They had been watching, waiting, enduring, and now they had stopped. Far out in the darkness between stars, beyond the reach of most sensors, something moved again. Not fast, not loud, but deliberate. A presence that didn't announce itself. Didn't need to, because it was no longer trying to be seen. It was deciding what to erase next. And this time, the galaxy was paying attention. The first confirmed sighting didn't come from a warship. It came from a mining drone. Drifting near the outer edge of Varesh-controlled space, the drone's sensors registered something impossible, mass without signature. No heat, no radiation, no movement, just presence. At first, it was flagged as an error. Then the drone's visual feed activated. And everything changed. Space itself appeared distorted, like a reflection in cracked glass. Stars bent at unnatural angles, their light stretching and folding as if something enormous stood between them and reality. Then, without transition, they were there. Ships, thousands of them. Dark, angular, silent. They hadn't arrived. They hadn't warped in or decloaked. They simply existed where there had been nothing seconds before. The drone transmitted the footage before its systems failed. Not damaged. Overridden. As if something had gently turned it off. Within minutes, the data reached Varesh Command. Silence filled the war room as the footage replayed again and again. "What am I looking at?" a senior commander finally asked. No one answered. Because no one understood it. There were no engine trails, no identifiable weapons, no communication signals. The ships didn't behave like objects bound by physics. They didn't even cast shadows correctly. "Track them," the commander ordered. "We can't," a technician replied, voice tight. "They don't maintain consistent coordinates. It's like they're shifting without moving." That didn't make sense. Nothing about this made sense. The order to engage was given anyway. Because the Varesh Empire didn't hesitate. Fear was something they inflicted, not something they felt. Fleet after fleet mobilized, converging on the unidentified formation. Warships armed with plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, and gravitational disruptors surrounded the anomaly in a tightening sphere. "Target all vessels," the commander instructed. "Fire on my mark." The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. The void lit up. A storm of energy surged forward, enough firepower to vaporize entire moons. The barrage tore through space, converging on the dark silhouettes of the human fleet. For a moment, it seemed decisive. Then the weapons passed through. Not deflected. Not absorbed. Passed through empty space. What? Before the confusion could settle, something shifted. The human ships flickered, not visibly but perceptibly, like reality adjusting itself around them. And then, they struck. The first Varesh cruiser disappeared mid-transmission. No explosion. No damage. No warning. One moment it was there, sending targeting data, coordinating fire. The next moment, nothing. Its signal cut instantly. Its position returned as empty space. "Status report," the commander barked. No response came, because there was nothing left to respond. Then another ship vanished. Then another. And another. Panic spread through the fleet. Maintain formation. Reacquire targets. What weapon is this? But there was no weapon to see. No projectile. No beam. No impact. Just absence. Ships were being erased faster than the Varesh could react. Entire squadrons disappeared without firing a second shot. Retreat, fall back, someone shouted. But even that command felt late. Because the human fleet hadn't moved. They hadn't advanced or repositioned. They remained exactly where they had first appeared. Watching. Deep within one of those silent ships, aboard the flagship Aegis Silentium, a single figure stood before a vast observation display. Commander Elias Varn. His expression didn't change as the battle unfolded. There was no satisfaction, no anger, only focus. Confirm synchronization, he said quietly. Synchronization stable, an officer replied. All units operating within projected tolerance. Continue. That was all. Outside, reality bent again. A Varkesh command vessel, massive, heavily shielded, the nerve center of the entire operation, began transmitting emergency signals. We are losing assets at an unsustainable rate, requesting immediate reinforce. The transmission cut off. The ship vanished. For the first time in their history, the Varkesh felt something unfamiliar. Not defeat. Not yet. But the beginning of it. Across the galaxy, long-range sensors picked up fragments of the engagement. Blurry data, incomplete readings. But enough to confirm the impossible. The Varkesh, an empire feared across countless systems, was being dismantled. Effortlessly. And still, humanity said nothing. No declarations. No warnings. No explanation. Back on Earth, within the same quiet command chamber, the list of confirmations continued to update. Targets identified. Targets removed. Expansion of engagement zone approved. No one questioned it. Because this was no longer retaliation. It was execution. Out in the void, the remaining Varkesh ships scattered, breaking formation in desperate attempts to escape. Some jumped blindly into hyperspace. Others powered down, hopping invisibility would save them. None of it mattered, because wherever they went, the human fleet was already there. Not chasing, not pursuing, simply present. And as the last organized resistance collapsed, a final command echoed across the silent expanse from the human flagship. Begin Phase 2. No one outside humanity knew what that meant. But across the stars, systems began to flicker. Sensors began to fail. And entire sectors of space started going dark. The galaxy had faced superweapons before. Planets shattered by kinetic strikes. Stars destabilized by reckless experiments. Entire systems wiped out in moments of desperation or ambition. But those weapons, no matter how destructive, always followed rules. They left something behind. Radiation, debris, gravitational scars. Evidence. What humanity was using left nothing. After the Varkesh losses escalated beyond recovery, panic began to spread beyond their borders. Other civilizations, once indifferent, now turned their full attention toward the unfolding crisis. They searched for patterns, signals, any trace that could explain what was happening. They found fragments, short-lived distortions in space-time, inconsistent quantum readings, regions where data simply failed to exist. It wasn't damage. It was absence, and absence couldn't be studied. Then came the leak. No one knew where it originated. Some believed it was an act of defiance from within human systems. Others suspected it was intentional, a controlled release designed to send a message. Either way, the files spread rapidly across secured networks, bypassing firewalls as if they weren't there. At first glance, it looked like a standard research archive. Until they read the title. Project Null. The document wasn't written for intimidation. It wasn't even simplified. It was clinical, precise, cold. A scientific record of discovery. Humanity had spent decades studying anomalies in quantum behavior, subtle inconsistencies in how matter interacted with time and space. At first, these irregularities were dismissed as measurement errors. Until they were. They found patterns. Then they found repetition. Then they found control. The key concept was almost impossible to comprehend. Reality, as it turned out, wasn't continuous. It was layered. Moments weren't fixed, they were selected. Existence wasn't permanent, it was maintained. And under very specific conditions. It could be interrupted. Project Null wasn't a weapon in the traditional sense. It didn't destroy matter. It didn't convert energy. It simply removed the conditions that allowed something to exist in the first place. A ship targeted by Null didn't explode. It didn't break apart. It was never there. Not in that moment. Not in any moment connected to it. Entire sections of the file were dedicated to containment protocols. Not for enemies. For themselves. Warnings repeated across multiple pages. Improper application may result in cascade erasure. Localized removal must remain within defined boundaries. Do not scale beyond tested parameters. Even the creators had feared it. But the most disturbing detail wasn't the theory. It was the timeline. The final successful test of Project Null was recorded over a century ago. 112 years. That's how long humanity had possessed the ability to erase anything from existence. And they hadn't used it. The implications spread like wildfire. Across war councils and research institutions, one realization took hold. Humanity had been holding the most absolute weapon ever conceived. And choosing not to use it. That changed everything. Because it meant the current conflict wasn't an escalation. It was a decision. Within Varesh territory, the remaining leadership struggled to regain control. Communication networks were collapsing. Entire command structures had already been erased. The few surviving admirals attempted to regroup, to coordinate a defense against an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't track, couldn't even understand. "What are we fighting?" one demanded during a fragmented transmission. No one could answer. Because they weren't fighting a fleet. They were fighting an absence. Attempts to counter it failed instantly. Shield systems had no effect. Stealth technologies were irrelevant. Even automated targeting systems struggled, unable to lock onto something that didn't occupy stable space. And then came the most terrifying realization. The disappearances weren't random. They were precise, strategic. Command vessels first, then coordination hubs, then supply lines. Humanity wasn't wiping out the Varesh blindly. They were dismantling them, step by step, layer by layer, until nothing remained. Back on Earth, the command chamber remained unchanged. Silent, controlled, efficient. A senior analyst spoke, breaking the stillness. Phase 1 objectives achieved. Varesh command integrity has dropped below operational threshold. Commander Varn nodded slightly. Proceed to infrastructure targeting. No hesitation. No debate. Because every step had already been calculated. Across the galaxy, fear deepened into something heavier. Not panic. Not yet. Something colder. Understanding. Humanity had not lashed out in anger. They had not responded emotionally. They had evaluated the threat, measured the response, and executed it with absolute precision. The message was clear, even without words. This wasn't retaliation. This was correction. Far beyond the primary conflict zone, in regions untouched by the war, monitoring stations began reporting unusual fluctuations. Brief gaps in recorded time. Moments where sensors failed to capture anything at all. Small, inconsistent, but growing. Because Project Null wasn't just active. It was expanding. And somewhere deep within human command systems, a new variable appeared on the operational display. Unplanned, unidentified, outside known parameters. For the first time since the operation began, someone hesitated, because something had just responded, not to the attack, but to the method. And whatever it was, it understood exactly what humanity was doing. The Varesh Empire had been built on one unshakable belief. Fear was power. For generations, they had crushed resistance, absorbed weaker civilizations, and expanded without hesitation. Entire star systems had fallen before them, not because they lacked strength, but because they lacked the will to resist. The Varesh had never needed to understand their enemies. They only needed to break them. But now something was breaking them, and they didn't understand it. What remained of their command structure gathered in the fortified core of their home system, a region layered with defensive grids, orbital weapons, and enough firepower to challenge multiple empires at once. It was the strongest position they had, and they knew it would be their last. "We consolidate everything," Supreme Commander Threx ordered, his voice echoing through the war chamber. "All remaining fleets, all assets, no exceptions." A subordinate hesitated. "Commander, if we abandon outer systems, They are already gone," Threx cut him off coldly. "What matters now is survival." Across Varesh space, the recall order spread. Warships disengaged from distant conflicts. Patrol fleets abandoned their routes. Even defensive garrisons withdrew, leaving entire sectors exposed. Everything moved toward one point. One final line. Millions of ships gathered. A wall of steel, energy, and desperation stretched across the edge of the home system. Layered formations, overlapping shields, weapon arrays charged to maximum capacity. It was overwhelming. Terrifying. The kind of force that had ended countless wars before they even began. But this time, it felt different. There was no confidence in the formation. No certainty. Only tension. "Any sign of them?" Threx demanded. "No confirmed visuals," a technician replied, "but sensor anomalies are increasing." "Define anomalies." The technician swallowed. "Localized distortions, intermittent coordinate instability. It's like space itself isn't stable anymore." A low murmur spread through the chamber. They were already here. Then the distortions intensified. Stars flickered, not dimming but shifting as if their positions were being adjusted. Coordinates failed to lock. Distance calculations returned conflicting results. And then, they appeared. The human fleet didn't emerge from hyperspace. They didn't decloak. They simply existed, stretching across the void, silent and motionless. No formation. No visible command structure. Just presence. For a brief moment, everything stopped. Millions of Varesh weapons locked onto targets. Millions of human ships did nothing. "Fire," Threx ordered. No hesitation. No delay. The void erupted. A storm of energy unlike anything ever recorded surged forward. Plasma waves, antimatter bursts, gravitational distortions, all converging on the silent fleet. The light alone was blinding. Entire sections of space vanished behind the barrage. For a moment, it felt like victory. Then the light faded. The human fleet was still there. Unchanged. Untouched. "No, that's not possible," someone whispered. But it was worse than impossible. Because the sensors told a different story. The human ships hadn't survived the attack. They hadn't been hit at all. Because at the moment of impact, they weren't there. Reality shifted. The first line of Varesh defense vanished instantly. Hundreds of ships gone. No explosions. No signals. Just empty space where they had been. "Maintain formation," Threx roared. "Return fire, adjust targeting." The second line disappeared. Panic broke. Not controlled retreat. Not strategic withdrawal. Chaos. Ships collided as formations collapsed. Targeting systems failed as coordinates shifted unpredictably. Communication channels filled with overlapping voices, orders, screams, confusion. They're everywhere. We can't lock onto them. What are we fighting? Another wave of erasure swept through the fleet. Not random. Precise. Command vessels first. Then heavy carriers. Then support lines. Threx gripped the edge of the command console, watching as decades of dominance unraveled in minutes. This isn't war, one of his officers said, voice shaking. He was right. It was. War implied resistance. War implied a chance. This was something else. Outside, the human fleet remained silent. They didn't advance. They didn't react. They simply executed. On board the Aegis Silentium, Commander Varn observed the battlefield with the same calm focus. Varkesh command structure collapsing, an officer reported. Fleet cohesion below 30%. Continue. Estimated time to total neutralization. Varn didn't answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the display. Not required, he said finally. Because the outcome had already been decided. Back in Varkesh command, Threx made his final decision. All remaining units, he broadcast, his voice cutting through the chaos. Focus fire on the central anomaly. Overwhelm them, no retreat. If they were going to fall, they would fall fighting. The remaining fleet aligned. Weapons charged. One final strike. They fired. And in that moment, reality broke. Not metaphorically. Not visually. Fundamentally. Space folded inward like fabric pulled too tightly. Light bent into impossible shapes. Time itself seemed to stutter. And then, half of the remaining Varkesh fleet disappeared. No transition. No delay. Just gone. Silence followed. Not the absence of sound. The absence of existence. Threx stared at the void where his empire had stood. For the first time in his life, he felt it. Not fear of defeat. Not fear of death. Fear of something far worse. Being erased. And as the last fragments of his fleet scattered into the darkness, one truth became undeniable. The Varkesh Empire wasn't losing. It had already lost. It just hadn't finished disappearing yet. The battle didn't end with an explosion. It ended with absence. Where the Varkesh Armada had once filled space with fire and command, there was now only a scattered handful of ships, drifting, fleeing, or frozen in place, their crews unable to process what they had just witnessed. No final charge. No heroic stand. Just collapse. Across the galaxy, observers watched in stunned silence. Fragments of the engagement had spread through long-range relays, distorted visuals, incomplete telemetry, but enough to confirm the impossible. The Varkesh Empire, one of the most feared forces in known space, had been dismantled in less than a single rotation. Not defeated. Erased. And then everything went quiet. The human fleet didn't pursue the survivors. They didn't press deeper into Varkesh territory. They simply remained where they were, vast, silent, unmoving. Like a storm that had already passed, leaving nothing behind. For several long minutes, no one in the galaxy moved. Military commands froze. Governments halted transmissions mid-sentence. Even automated systems seemed to lag, as if reality itself was catching up to what had just occurred. Because everyone was waiting. Waiting for the next step. The next strike. The next disappearance. Instead, a transmission began. It didn't override systems the way the previous message had. It didn't force its way into every channel. It simply appeared. Accessible. Opened. As if humanity wanted it to be heard, not feared. Across countless worlds, billions of beings turned their attention to a single screen. The image resolved slowly. A human. No uniform of rank, no visible insignia. Just a face. Tired. Calm. Unshaken. For a moment, they said nothing. And that silence carried more weight than any speech. Then they spoke. We asked for peace. The voice was steady, almost quiet, but it carried across systems without distortion. Images flickered behind them. Indoors. Empty structures. Silent streets. No life. We endured attacks. We tolerated aggression. We chose restraint because we believed coexistence was possible. The human paused briefly, as if choosing each word carefully. We were wronged. The statement wasn't angry. It wasn't emotional. It was final. Across the galaxy, no one interrupted. No one dared. You mistook our patience for weakness, the human continued. You assumed our silence meant submission. You believed that because we did not strike back, we could not. Another pause. Slightly longer this time. That assumption has now been corrected. In distant systems, military leaders felt a chill they couldn't explain. Because this wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. We are not conquerors, the human said. We do not seek your worlds, we do not desire your extinction. The words were simple, clear, but they carried a weight that settled deep. We will not expand through force, we will not dominate through fear. For a brief moment, something almost like relief flickered across the galaxy. Then the human leaned slightly closer to the screen. And everything changed. But understand this. The tone didn't rise. It didn't sharpen. It remained calm. And that made it worse. If you threaten us again. A pause. We will not fight you. Confusion rippled through those listening. Not fight. After what they had just witnessed. The human's gaze didn't waver. We will not negotiate. Another pause. We will not respond. Silence deepened. Because there was only one possibility left. We will simply remove you. No emphasis. No dramatic shift. Just a quiet conclusion. The transmission lingered for a fraction of a second longer. Then it ended. No follow-up. No clarification. No additional message. And that was it. Across the galaxy, something fundamental shifted. Wars that had been ongoing for centuries stopped. Commanders who had spent lifetimes planning conquests issued immediate stand-down orders. Border disputes dissolved overnight. Even species known for relentless aggression withdrew their forces without hesitation. Because everyone understood the same thing at once. This wasn't a warning in the traditional sense. It was a line. And humanity had just shown exactly what happened when it was crossed. Back on Earth, in the same hidden command chamber, the atmosphere remained unchanged. Controlled. Quiet. Transmission complete, an officer reported. Commander Varn gave a small nod. Any response? None, the officer replied. All major powers have ceased active conflicts. Fleet movements indicate widespread withdrawal. Varn turned his attention back to the display. Where once there had been a dense network of hostile activity, there was now stillness. Good, he said simply. No satisfaction. No pride. Just confirmation. Because this had never been about victory. It had been about understanding. And now the galaxy understood. Far beyond the edges of known space, however. Something else did too. The same unseen presence that had reacted earlier now stirred again. Stronger. Closer. Not hostile. Not yet. But aware. Because humanity had done something no species had ever done before. They hadn't just used power. They had redefined it. And something ancient was paying attention. Silence spread faster than war ever had. It didn't arrive with fleets or weapons. It arrived with decisions. Across the galaxy, one by one, empires stepped back. Border conflicts that had burned for centuries ended in hours. Command ships broadcast ceasefire orders without negotiation. Military channels, once filled with strategies and threats, went quiet. No one wanted to be noticed, because now attention had a cost. Trade routes stabilized almost overnight. Regions once considered too dangerous suddenly became accessible. Cargo fleets traveled without escort. Smugglers vanished. Pirates, those who had built entire lives around exploiting chaos, simply disappeared into hiding. Not hunted. Not destroyed. They just stopped. Even the most aggressive species, those who had never yielded to anyone, began withdrawing their forces. Carefully, quietly, without announcement, because there was no enemy to confront, no front line to defend, just a single, unspoken rule echoing through every system. Do not provoke humanity. And humanity. They did nothing. No expansion. No occupation of weakened territories. No attempt to claim authority over the now fragile balance of power. Their fleets, once spread across Varesh space, simply vanished. Not destroyed. Not recalled invisible formations. They were just gone. As if they had never been there at all. Back on Earth, life continued. Cities moved as they always had, trade flowed, communications remained open. To an outside observer, it would have looked like nothing had changed. But beneath the surface, everything had. Project Null remained active. Not deployed. Not escalating. Just present. Watching. Within the command networks, monitoring systems tracked every major civilization in real time, not to control them. To understand them. Patterns of aggression, shifts in behavior, signs of instability. All recorded. All evaluated. But no further actions were taken. Commander Varn stood alone in the observation chamber, looking out at a projection of known space. Where once there had been constant movement, conflicts, fleet mobilizations, territorial shifts, there was now a strange, fragile stillness. An equilibrium enforced not by treaties, but by fear. Status report, he said quietly. An officer's voice responded from behind him. All major hostilities have ceased. No active conflicts detected above minimal threshold levels. Varn didn't turn. Compliance. Universal. A pause. Even from species previously classified as non-cooperative. Varn nodded slightly. It was expected. What about internal stability? He asked. Mixed, the officer replied. Several empires are experiencing structural strain, power vacuums, leadership disputes. Without external conflict, internal tensions are rising. That too was expected. Peace forced too quickly had consequences. Continue observation, Varn said. Because humanity wasn't here to manage the galaxy. They never had been. That was the part no one seemed to understand. In the aftermath of the Varesh collapse, many civilizations had assumed humanity would step forward, to lead, to control, to impose order. But they didn't. They stepped back. They always had. That realization spread slowly, quietly, but it carried its own kind of weight. Because it meant something deeply unsettling. Humanity didn't want power. They had it, and they chose not to use it. That choice was what terrified the galaxy most. Because if power wasn't being used for control, then it was being reserved. And no one knew for what. Years began to pass. Not many, but enough for patterns to settle. Conflicts didn't return. Not in any significant way. Even small disputes were handled cautiously, carefully, Every decision measured against an invisible threshold no one dared to cross. Entire generations began to grow up in a galaxy that was quiet. Not peaceful, not truly, but restrained. Children learned new histories, not just of wars and empires, but of the moment everything changed. The moment a single species proved that restraint had limits. And in those stories, humanity was never described as conquerors. They were something else. A boundary. Back in deep space, far from any inhabited system, a monitoring station detected a brief anomaly. A flicker. Small. Almost insignificant. The system flagged it automatically. Logged it. Analyzed it. And then it failed to categorize it. That hadn't happened in a long time. Within seconds, the data was forwarded through secured channels. Past automated systems. Past standard review protocols. Directly to Central Command. On Varn's display, a new marker appeared. Unidentified. Unclassified. He studied it for a long moment. Source, he asked. Unknown, came the response. Not consistent with known signatures, not consistent with Project Null activity. Varn's expression didn't change, but something in the room shifted. Scale. A pause. Then, indeterminate. That was new. Outside the boundaries of mapped space, something moved. Not like the human fleet. Not like anything recorded. It didn't distort reality. It didn't hide from sensors. It simply existed. And for the first time since humanity had acted, something else was doing the same. Varn gave a single, quiet order. Track it. Because the silence that had settled across the galaxy might not belong to humanity anymore. The galaxy had learned to live with silence. Not peace. Never peace. Peace implied trust, something that had long since faded between the stars. What replaced it was something colder, more fragile. Restraint. Every species, every empire, every scattered civilization existed within invisible boundaries now. Lines no one could see, but everyone understood. Do not push too far. Do not provoke. Do not test humanity. It wasn't enforced through patrols or threats. It was enforced through memory. Years passed, and the story of the Varesh fall became more than history. It became a warning. Children on distant worlds learned it not as legend, but as fact. Entire education systems built simulations to demonstrate the moment everything changed, the instant a dominant empire simply ceased. No war. No resistance. Just absence. But the most unsettling part wasn't what humanity had done. It was what they hadn't done. They didn't rise to power. They didn't establish control. They didn't reshape the galaxy in their image. They stepped back and watched. That was what made them different. That was what made them dangerous. Deep within human space, Project Null remained active. Not deployed. Not idled. Maintained. Monitored. Ready. Its existence alone reshaped behavior across known systems. Conflicts were measured carefully, aggression calculated against unknown thresholds. Even the boldest leaders chose caution over ambition. Because no one knew exactly where the line was. Only that it existed. Commander Varn stood once again in the observation chamber. The vast projection of the galaxy spread before him. But it looked different now. Not because of what was visible. Because of what wasn't. No active war zones. No large-scale fleet movements. No rising empires pushing outward. Just stillness. Status, he asked. Stable, came the reply. No major hostilities. Monitoring systems report continued compliance across all sectors. Varn nodded slightly. It had worked. But stability wasn't the same as safety. Anomaly update, he said. There was a brief pause before the response came. It's still there. The unidentified presence, detected beyond known space, hadn't disappeared. It hadn't moved in any predictable pattern. It hadn't interacted, but it hadn't left either. Closer, Varn asked. Yes. That single word carried weight. Behavior. Observational. Varn turned slightly, his eyes narrowing. Explain. It hasn't acted, the officer said. No aggression, no interference, but its position continues to adjust toward regions of high Project Null activity. Toward them. For the first time in years, something wasn't reacting to humanity with fear. It was watching. Analysis, Varn asked. Insufficient data, the officer replied, but preliminary models suggest awareness. That was enough. Because awareness meant potential. And potential meant risk. Across the galaxy, others had begun to notice it too. At first it was dismissed, another anomaly, another unexplained fluctuation in deep space. But as data accumulated, as independent observations aligned, a quiet concern began to spread. Something was out there. Something that didn't behave like anything known. And unlike the rest of the galaxy, it didn't seem afraid. Back on Earth, discussions began. Not public, not widespread, but among those who understood Project Null, who had seen its limits, who had studied its consequences. Because for all its power, it wasn't perfect. There were boundaries, constraints, things it couldn't account for. And now, something had appeared that didn't fit within those boundaries. Recommendation, Varn asked. The room hesitated. Then, increase readiness. He considered that for a moment. Then nodded. Prepare the fleet. The words were quiet, measured, but they carried the same weight they always had. Across hidden shipyards and silent construction zones, systems began to activate. Not visibly, not dramatically, but steadily. Because humanity didn't panic. They prepared. Far beyond the edges of mapped space, the anomaly shifted again. Closer, clearer, and for the first time, it changed. Not in size, not in position, in behavior. A faint distortion rippled outward from its center, subtle, controlled, precise. A response. Not to an attack, not to a threat. To them. Because whatever it was, it had been watching, learning, understanding. And now, it was ready to be noticed. Back in the command chamber, a new signal appeared on the display. Not intercepted, not decoded, delivered, directly. The room fell silent as the system attempted to process it. Then failed. Can you translate it? Varn asked. A long pause. No. Another moment passed. Then, but it's not random. Varn stepped closer to the screen. The signal wasn't chaotic. It wasn't noise. It was structured, intentional. A message. From something that had just witnessed the most powerful force in the galaxy. And wasn't impressed. Varn's voice broke the silence. Quiet, steady, unshaken. Open channel. Because for the first time since humanity had unleashed its true power. They weren't the only ones who could.